Hello and welcome dear learners to the NPTEL course on Nutritional Epidemiology, a way towards a healthy life. In the Module 1, in continuation for the foundation and principles of nutritional epidemiology, for today's chapter, chapter 7, we will be discussing about the basic nutrition science refresher. So in the classifications of nutrients, digestion, metabolism and energy balance will be discussed in this chapter. Along with this, nutrient requirements and recommendations, bioavailability, the nutrient interactions and food matrix, the diet diversity and quality, along with homeostasis and storage will be also discussed. Biomarkers as the gold standard approach of exposure will also be taken in discussion. So now concentrating what is nutrition science as such. So nutrition science is the study of how food and its components influence physiological functions. Whole lot of your activities, your energy, your thinking. It also discusses about your growth and tissue maintenance, that how you maintain it, how you repair it, or with your growing and development challenges, how you take it ahead. So nutrition science is something which is taking a great influence of all these needs. Nutritional epidemiology includes the study of how these biological mechanisms interact with the dietary patterns. So we have studied the dietary patterns in the previous discussions. Now we are trying to make it more clear that across the populations, across the risk that they face and the health outcomes that are derived by their changes that will be discussed. And epidemiology, particularly for the nutritional part, relies more heavily on the basic nutrition. So nutritional epidemiology gives us a chance to understand how nutrients are processed in the body, how the nutrient deficiencies or excess leads to a disease condition. So we will be discussing about the processes part, we will be discussing about the deficiencies and excesses, and this all makes us a reason in addition how biomarkers particularly can measure the nutrient exposure. So the basic understanding of nutrition is essential for accurately measuring the exposure and interpreting the epidemiological data. So biomarkers are making us more a reason that we are trying to enhance actually the nutritional science, which gives us a reason that we need to highly rely on nutritional epidemiology for getting the more exposure that the scientific development of nutrition science is coming to us. The classification of the nutrients need to be understood in detail to go in more understanding of the body functions that nutrients gives us, which are obtained from the food, and essentially they are more concentrating towards growth, metabolism and maintenance. The three very important reasons that nutrition is being taught or being even studied in detail is more that we understand the growth pattern, the metabolism and the maintenance, which gives us a reason that it has a great reason that whole of the body functioning, whether it is good or in a bad shape, is more derived by the nutrition. Now we try to focus more on the classification of the nutrients. The macronutrient is something which gives us a source that it is needed in large amount for energy and structural blocks, where versus the micronutrient which is needed in trace elements actually, or a minuteness, or I mean to say many times it is not visible to our eyes actually. They are needed in the amounts, trace elements amount for the vital functioning for your physiological function. So here on the macro part it is more with the energy, and here on the micro part actually it is more with the physiological functions, vital functions. And additionally we take amount of water. The water is the most critical nutrient and it serves of the universal solvent and essential for the cellular homeostasis. Water is very, very important. Okay, so you may say whether we take 60, 70 or whatever amount, it is more reasons actually like how it needs to get balanced. That will be the future discussions of our topic. In the macronutrient, we have carbohydrate as a major source, which yields like 4 calories per gram primary energy source, and we say protein as 4 kilocalories per gram is something an essential for structural and functional process, which gives more reason that enzymes and hormones are more secreted because of a good amount of protein that we have. Lipids, that is particularly fats, which yield as 9 kilocalories per gram, is a crucial for cell membranes, hormone synthesis and energy storage. So you find that sometimes there is more rejection towards lipids and fats, but it is more reason that sometimes it is very important, especially for the fats what we take it from eggs, which is more a reason that it gives more connection of the hormones that are synthesized, and there is a reason that why the storage also sometimes becomes more problem that when it is stored very high in your liver. Okay, now we'll go more on the micronutrient part. Micronutrients, as stated, are very important for your physiological needs. The vitamins, particularly we can say water soluble vitamins and fat soluble vitamins. In the water soluble vitamins, there are two important vitamins, that is vitamin C and vitamin B. Vitamin B has a group range of vitamin B complex, actually we will say from vitamin 1, B1 to B12. In the fat soluble vitamin, which is absorbed and being stored in form of fat and with along fat, that is vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E and vitamin K. So these four vitamins are fat soluble vitamins, and the other vitamin C and B complex group as a whole is a water soluble vitamin. In mineral, that are macro minerals and trace elements. So macro minerals, especially calcium, we require more, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium and potassium. These four are essentially being seen as a macro minerals. Okay, in the entire requirement of the minerals, these are the one which, and many times you may be finding that these are being seen in your energizer or sometimes in your ORS solutions, or you may find that people consume particularly in the summer seasons actually, and all that it's become very essential, or even diuretic conditions, this macro mineral play a major role in the treatment. Ideally speaking, macro mineral play more in the structural roles, bones, teeth development, maintenance of electrolyte balance as I stated, and many other reasons are giving us. But there is also a role of trace elements, that is iron, zinc, iodine, selenium, copper. These are very important for enzyme activation, to give a reasons for enzyme secretion, oxygen transport. So you have to take trace elements along with that macro minerals also. Then comes the nutrient journey actually, digestion, absorption and metabolism. Digestion, as you know, in the human body, it is very important to see that when you take a food or prepare, actually you try actually to go through a mechanical breakdown. That is like you chew it up, you churn it up, you try to mix up with your saliva, that is through your mouth and amylase. And especially when you are going with the enzymatic process which is from your esophagus and it goes to your stomach, particularly where the secretion of pepsin and proteins are being stated, and your digestion process gets completed in your intestine, small versus large intestine. The completing the entire process and leading it actually to give us your reasons for excretory, the entire digestion process is being stated to be seen as a very important, very fundamentally first stage. Then comes an absorption, which is to be seen in the small intestine, which is very important in your villi and your microvilli, which gives you a reason that how the basic units, example for glucose or amino acids and fatty acids, are being seen as something which are being absorbed only in the small intestine. So if you get a reason actually that in the blood stream actually high glucose is there or high sodium is there, or sometimes you may find that high fat is there, it is more because of the absorption pattern. Sometimes it may be ill absorption or sometimes it is a good absorption to be stated, and in the nutrition journey absorption becomes a very important part. Then comes the third and the final stage, that is metabolism. How this absorbed nutrient which is taken from the small intestine, which are being stored in the liver, especially the biochemical pathways converting nutrients into energy and building blocks. Liver plays a very central role in regulating the metabolism. There is anabolism and catabolism. What is anabolism? The building complex molecules, particularly synthesis, protein building, giving more protein deposition in your body, or a glycogen storage actually which is there in the fat tissues actually, which is more reason that anabolism plays a reason actually that liver comes is a very central role, and your building complex molecules comes up in a picture. Where the catabolism is breaking down the molecules when it is more need of an energy, sometimes with a high sun, or sometimes with a climate change, or sometimes when especially when your body requires more physical, that time catabolism is done. So the glycolysis, breaking down of glucose to generate ATP, which is energy release and energy utilization. So anabolism and catabolism go hand in hand for the metabolism cycle. Now understand the energy balance. What is an energy balance? Energy balance is the relation between calorie intake and expenditure. As we see that in anabolism and catabolism, the energy balance is also giving you a reason that what it gives a total energy expenditure. If we see the components of this and what are the structural requirements that we require, so energy balance is equal to total energy taken minus total energy expenditure. Okay, so the BMR, basal metabolic rate, where your energy required for life sustaining functions accounts like 60 to 75% of your total energy expenditure. So you may say your total energy expenditure and your total energy expenditure which comes either in a disease condition or your physical activity or your activity which are for your daily work development, and even thermic effect, like particularly for winter season you may see that your body has a good absorption versus in a summer season you find your energy levels go depend actually. So energy expended to digest the food or energy expended to give for a metabolism of the food. So 10% of that requirement is also going over there. Physical activity, some people who have to do a lot of physical activity or food work, the most variable component actually that they encompass actually for exercise, or sometimes people who find a very sedentary lifestyle that they don't have to put a lot of expenditure of their energy, they get more storage. So activity thermogenesis is something called as a NEAT is one which is very important, that the total expenditure of the food is more composed of three main parts, that is BMR, the thermic effect of food and physical activity. Then we understand energy balance, the positive energy balance. So energy intake and energy expenditure. What does it leads to? So if you have more energy intake and lesser energy expenditure, you will get more weight gain, obesity. It will increase adipose risk of obesity and metabolic diseases, and you may find multiple reasons that if the energy intake is higher and the energy expenditure is lower, you may lead to the disease condition, which are giving more reasons for people because of their lifestyle disorders of obesity. What is negative energy balance? Where energy intake is less and the expenditure is more. You may find a lot of people who are with malnutrition, undernutrition, or sometimes who are cachexious, or sometimes who are in very lot of physical activity, especially women's. You find mid age actually people who are in the work, they have a lot of weight loss, potentially undernutrition. So this leads to a major reason where energy is not being seen into proper balance. Either it's a positive, it's very higher, negative, it is very poor on the part. Nutrient requirement and recommendation. When we talk about the nutrient requirements, it refers to the amount of nutrients needed to maintain the health and prevent. So estimated average requirement is something like we say 50% of the healthy individuals in the group meet the requirement, but rest of them are not able to do it. They find it very deficient. So used to access the population prevalence of inadequacy, like how many of them are really not getting. So estimated average requirement is something very important to see when we are taking the whole glance of the diet reference intakes. Okay, and recommended dietary allowance RDA. So the intake level sufficient to meet the needs of 97 to 98% of the healthy individual, which tries to see that overall or the wholesome of the diet, which gives us a reason that it is used as a goal for daily nutrient intake, that how much of the quantity, how much of the variety, and how much of them have taken it in terms of the proportion of that. Then comes the adequate intake, which is used when there is insufficient evidence to establish the ER, that is estimated average requirement, and RDA, that is recommended dietary allowance. So adequate intake is one which is reasonable reasons actually to state us that what amount of food is to be taken according to the age, according to the weight, and according to the gender, and also the cultural patterns of shift and lift. So this provides a safe and sufficient intake based on the available data. So adequate intake is something which is to be understood. Then tolerable upper intake level. The highest daily intake likely to pose no risk of adverse event. So higher is something actually which is helps to prevent the toxicity and excessive nutrient consumption, where tolerable actually that you can tolerate, like vitamins, multiple supplements and all those things. What are the factors that are influencing the individual nutrient requirements? Are there factors which makes us more reason that, oh, these are the reasons that even in spite of taking whole lot of considerations of the food, you have some reason that it creates a issues actually for, especially for age purpose. So age wise, when we see from neonates actually to the older, need change through the growth and aging. You cannot reject that summer time of your life, especially before ossification of your bones or early in your under 5 or under 2, the higher protein calcium is very required for your growth. Where versus at the end stage of your life also, the higher protein and calcium requirement increases just like what your children is. Okay, reduce calories and nutrients in aging. So you may get age as one among the important factors. Age, biological triage through growth and age, hormones, body consumption, iron needs, metabolic disorder according to age gives us a reason for that part. Sex, particularly biological and hormonal difference is very important, where women versus men for the body consumption, iron needs particularly for female because of the menstrual cycle, hormones particularly for women, it's completely very different. Body size, height and weight determines metabolic rates, like people with a higher height, higher weight actually, or surface area, calorie needs scale with size, and it is a reason like people with higher has more reasons of increasing of appetite or increase food intake also. Physiological status, like specialized need, suppose in pregnancy or lactation. In pregnancy, you require higher need of calcium, folate, iron, and in lactation also calcium, calories, and sometimes even protein is very important role playing over there. Disease condition, particular disease condition like chronic disease condition or IBS as I stated, or diabetes or other conditions which gives more illnesses which are altered in the body to process for this nutrient. Physical activity as an exercise or a gym, or sometimes a strong physical activity because of the work, the physical expenditure dictates the nutrient needs, the type and intensity, the duration and frequency, and increased energy versus water. The bioavailability principles and factors affecting. Bioavailability refers to the proportion of an ingested food nutrient that is absorbed and utilized by the body. So what are the core principles of nutrition bioavailability? It is like a food matrix. The physiological part deals more from the physical structure that we have taken up, like whole food structure and the nutrient less accessible. And then comes the processed supplements, nutrient readily released actually, which gives a reason that people consume vitamin C tablet or even chew it because it gives a readily availability. Where the whole food structure, out of that, if your body is trying to take a particular nutrient, it takes more times actually. So it is the ingestion, digestion and absorption which gives more reasons of either it is an enhanced or a lower. Vitamin C particularly and fights or enhance absorption, or sometimes fights gives inhibition or absorption is poor. So the bioavailability proportions of nutrient ingested, that is absorbed and utilized, 100% ingested, the absorption of proportion or utilization. What is the chemical form? If you see the heme ion, high absorption efficiency, where you say the non-heme ion, lower absorption efficiency. So you will find vegetable induced iron and non-vegetarian component or dietary pattern actually from animal food gives reasons actually that there is a difference between the high absorption of iron versus low absorption of iron. What are the host factor? Anemia, particularly if you find the nutritional status of that, increase iron and requirement of vitamins is there. Where your gut health, if it is not good, either you eat in a proportion or even higher, the microbiome balance, if it is not done, then it gives you more chance of indigestion. What are the factors that are affecting bioavailability? factors which are very important to understand over here is the physical structure of food that can affect the nutrient. Example, iron absorption from plant food is lower compared to the animal food. Okay, it is being stated here, this is a plant food which is being shown where a lower absorption of iron, and the animal food the higher absorption iron. Now we will focus more on the nutrient form. Different chemical forms have different absorption rate, like heme iron versus non-heme iron. You can see the example, heme iron even for animal foods like fish and all that, or ham, and non-heme iron from plant based, actually it is lower. You may find vitamin C as an enhancer to enhance the iron absorption, or you may find lot of oils actually, or avocado or almonds actually, which are fat soluble vitamins that you can get an enhancer. What are the inhibitors? Mostly like phytates, oxalates and polyphenols actually, which reduces the nutrient absorption, and many times it is being stated they are being rejected also. The host factors, age, nutrition status, gut health and genetic plays a very important role to see that affecting factor. Now we have nutrient interactions and food matrix. Food contains complex mixture of nutrient, and that interaction with each other comes with absorption, utilization and metabolic pathways. Where you find vitamin C plus iron improves the absorption, where calcium plus iron reduces the iron absorption. So it is already being stated at contrasted and also being supported. So fat plus fat soluble vitamins improves absorption. So you have to see that it is very important that how nutrition interaction plays major role into the food matrix. Understanding the food matrix now in detail, like whole food, suppose we are taking spinach or we are taking fenugreek, you have a high iron actually, but the calcium fiber or the actions that is being trapped actually, where we find that the enzyme releasing for digestion, and the processed food, for example, a food which has a matrix which is being removed and you have a fine supplement of particularly iron, I can say, which gives us more reason that it is a complete release and you get a rapid response for that. Nutrient interactions, synergy and complexions, where giving an example of vitamin D and calcium, where the vitamin D increases absorption of calcium, okay, in the intestinal wall, and so you find the work cooperativeness is very enhanced, especially in the small intestine, where you find that lot of reasons that the gut is supporting is more that if you concentrate more on the micronutrient part of that, whether it is a copper, whether it is a calcium, whether it is a vitamin D, a zinc or even a copper actually. The zinc supplement gives more antagonizing copper absorption inducing deficiency. So it is very important to understand the different cell pathways also. What is dietary diversity? So modern nutritional epidemiology has shifted from focusing solely on isolated nutrients to overall diet pattern. So you may find a lot of emphasis is being given on vitamin C, clear vision, vitamin C, immunity, vitamin A, clear vision, vitamin D, bone health, iron giving you oxygen transport, zinc giving you cell function, calcium, strong bones, vitamin B, energy metabolism. So this gives us a reason that you have to consume meat, fish, cereals, especially fruits, veggies and dairy. So all this will give you more dietary diversity and making it a more comprehensive diet, which will act you to give us some more reasons that whatever you are consuming, it should be a very much balance in all these proportions. Now measuring the dietary quality, optimal pattern versus ultra processed. What is ultra processed? Like you may come up with beverages or even cokes, or even may find like burgers, pizzas and all those which are energy dense but they are nutritionally poor. That is the reason that ultra processed foods are being more rejected, and the increasing reasons of it only because of taste and not because of the diet reason. Where the dietary quality which is more focused on the opposite side, that we find a higher dietary quality, it is like a nutrition dense, where you may say your almonds, legumes, groundnuts, pulses, or your cereals actually, or you may find avocado, salmon, fish, or your berries actually, or even fruits, which may be coming as one reason that dietary quality is very highly scored more than 85%, particularly to meet up the optimal health requirement, is more being given from the high dietary quality components. Now, what are the critical concepts of hemostasis and storage? Does the body focuses that yes, it is more like when we talk about water, it gives a very strong relationship of hemostasis. The body tightly regulates the blood and concentration of the certain nutrient like calcium or sodium. So therefore, a blood test for calcium reflects the body's hemostatic control, and tightly to state that it is a regulated blood concentration, and it is very important that calcium or sodium plays a major role in your hemostasis. Where is it being stored? The food stored in the certain nutrient, especially for vitamin C, in liver, and not where, because it is a fat soluble. Whereas the vitamin B12 is also very fat soluble, where the vitamin C is not a fat soluble, it's water soluble, so it cannot be stored in the body for a longer time. So you have to consume it regularly, where consumption of vitamin B12 or vitamin A is not advisable, where you can take it in a form of a bulk which can be stored and it can be taken it as. So the limited storage and regular replenishment is something which is very important for particular vitamins. Understanding the nutrient hemostasis in detail, the hormonal regulation plays a major role, that sometimes your hormones may trigger either a high blood pressure, or it is like a high blood glucose level elevating from your insulin secretion, or sometimes actually which is affected by the hormonal needs that you may require more glycogen, suppose in a pregnant woman, or even low blood glucose with a person who is more hypoglycemic because of diabetes. So stable levels are something which are coming more from the hormonal regulation. The nutrient storage, particularly for those actually who find that the protein is some reason actually being stated to see according to the capacity eating, or sometimes when it is deficient you may find a laxy muscles. So liver plays major role, gallbladder, intestine, pancreas and kidneys. Although controlling mechanism actually to put all this is no doubt with the brain, which gives us a trigger actually that how your synthesis is being done. The controlled excretion actually which goes from kidney as primarily as one, and the intestine, which comes more a reason that your urine output or your glomerular filtration rate reasons us to understand like how your tissues or your body has given up the output management, whether it is low like your muscle getting fatigue, or your urine output is reduced actually, or sometimes your dysuria, which is a painful urination where your intake of your water or your minerals are lesser, you may find more reasons of your energy level getting diminished. The critical concepts of hemostasis and storage, human nutrient storage sites. What are the human nutrient storage sites? It is more liver and muscles. For the fats, it is more like the adipose tissue. For the iron, it is in the liver and the spleen. And vitamin A, no doubt in liver, and vitamin B12 in the liver. So you may find vitamin B12 can be stored up to 5 years, and it is very, very important for your nerve health. And the blood cell formation or giving the shape to your RBCs is more derived by B12. Vitamin A is something which is related to your immunity. It can be stored for several months in your liver. And fat, which is always very important as a storage, because it's like a bank that it can be insulated and protecting to give you triglycerides as very primary form, and it can be stored for a long period of time. One among the food that you may think that it gives you reasons to increase your fat, it is essential, but in excess it is also not good. Iron, which is something which is stored in a form of ferritin and hemostatin, it is more in your liver and spleen. Also, for the protein part, we need to think that muscle plays an important role, but liver maintains the blood sugar and muscles fuel physical energy for this part. The biomarkers. At the last, when we try to understand what are the gold standards for the exposure. In nutritional epidemiology, biomarkers are objective indicators. It may come from dietary intake, it may come from nutritional status or metabolic processes. So you understand the recovery biomarker. Suppose a person who is on a dietary intake for protein and has a good absorption, it may see that the nutrition is being pointing towards a 24-hour urinary nitrogen, and have a good quantitative relationship with intake versus the specific time. So you may find that it is very important that how your 24 hours urine collection is pointing towards being seen as a recovery biomarker for a patient who is with a protein. Also, the concentration of biomarkers towards a correlation, whether a correlation of a folate, particularly for ANC part, or an intake of a carotenoids for a patient who is on a fatty liver, or particularly for women actually who are being seen in gestational diabetes. The host factors and the metabolic influences gives us more reasons that the correlation is more heavily influenced by metabolism. Also on the RAS, the predictive biomarkers particularly for people who are with diabetic or obesity, or sometimes actually for hormonal disorders, actually they are more being seen to be constantly observed for the predictive biomarkers, where dose response but incomplete recovery, where you have to concentrate more on your recovery part, which gives us a relationship for this. Additional advantages that I want to put: advantages of biomarkers and limitation: objective measurement, less affected by recall biases and can validate dietary assessment. Limitations are very expensive, so it is very difficult actually to say that they may get more reasons to be rejected. Limitation may reflect a research take only rather not the whole time and the whole 24 hours. Sometimes it gives varied availability. Influenced by metabolism disease, no doubt if you are acute or chronic, it will give more reasons for rejections and not give you proper answers for that. So in summary to this particular chapter, the basic nutrition science provides you the biological foundation for understanding how diet influences the health and disease in population. It covers the classification of nutrient, digestion, metabolism and role in maintaining energy balance and physiological functions. The concepts such as nutrition requirement, bioavailability, nutrition interactions and dietary quality are essential for interpreting the dietary exposure in epidemiological studies. Very important to see that additionally, when we try to understand the homeostasis or the nutrition storage, the use of biomarkers is being increasing and the researchers are accurately now concentrating on the nutritional status. Also, they are able to connect the diet and disease relationship. So with this, we come an end to this chapter. These are very important references for the concentration to study this topic in detail and going into the classification of nutrition and giving us more reasons actually to go into depth of study, like how we are more projecting towards the biomarkers for that part. So thank you very much.